No worries. Uh, Thank you very much for having me. Hello, everybody. Yeah, thanks for coming on and joining us. I'm sure there'll be a couple other people coming in late. I am just going to share my screen quickly. There we go. Everyone should be able to see that, right? I hope so. um, so, um, Thank you very much for coming. My name is Andy Driver. I am the operations manager at Grads in Games, and I've been asked to come in today and give a bit of an overview when it comes to creative roles in the games industry, as well as really how to get them. That probably should be added on there. So hopefully I'm going to give you a bit of info about the industry and what kind of roles are available, and if it's something you're interested in, how you can go about getting them. To begin with, just a little bit of a kind of overall intro of the industry itself. So the figures you can see on here are taken from the latest industry census that took place in 2020. And as you can see, the industry is probably a lot bigger than a lot of people realise. So there's over 2,300 studios that actually make games in the UK that employ over 50,000 people. And contribute 2.8 billion to the economy. That is just in the UK. The UK is a big hub for the games industry, and I say it's a growing industry that a lot of people are very keen to join. There was another piece of research that was done recently as well, which found that I think it was over 80% of adults play games on a regular basis. So this could be, all the way from your console games and your PC games, all the way through to your small mobile games, playing Candy Crush and that kind of thing. But the games industry is huge. Everybody pretty much plays games. That number is even higher for kids. But what it does mean from a work perspective is that the games industry is a really aspirational industry. There's more and more people that are growing up and playing games their whole lives. Had a PlayStation since they were a little kid, for example. And when it comes to choosing possible career options and what to study at 15, 16 years old, games is becoming a much more realistic route for people, which is great. What it does mean is that it's now a really competitive area to get into entry-level roles within the games industry. It's incredibly competitive. So making sure that you have the right skills and you're able to showcase them in the correct way is absolutely vital. We're going to go through some of that today. The pandemic didn't impact the games industry as much as it did other industries. The pandemic's been horrible for everybody for the last 18 months or so, and it'd be foolish not to mention it here. But actually, the games industry probably thrived in some respects. More people were at home more often, with nowhere else to go, and therefore played games more, bought more games, more money came into the industry. That means they can hire more people to make more games. It's a very simplified way of looking at it, but the games industry did very well. It adapted really well when it comes to work, in working remotely, etc. And the industry has grown in every single way over the last 18 months. Entry-level jobs, as I mentioned, are still very highly sought after. They are difficult to get, and there are lots of people looking for them. And I suppose if you take one thing away from this, it's that doing a degree and just liking games isn't enough for those entry-level roles because it's so competitive. So we're going to kind of run through some of the reasons why and what some of the things you can do. But just having a degree in some sort of creative field or coding or computer science or something like that and liking games, quite frankly, just isn't good enough anymore. There needs to be more done, but we're going to go through that in more detail. And it is partly the reason why we exist here at Grads in Games. So just a very quick info about us. So we are a non-profit organisation that focuses on employability for the games industry. So we run a whole calendar of events, projects, initiatives, such as you can see, Get in the Game, Search for a Star, Games Careers Week, and tons of others, Everything is designed to help students and young people to become more employable for the video games industry. Everything we do works in very close collaboration with the studios themselves, so with the employers. They're involved in every single part of what we do. Therefore, the advice that we give and the opportunities that we provide are up to date, they're current, they are exactly what the industry says that they want. So, to begin with, let's have a bit of an overview of creative roles in game development. So, within a game studio, there's over 100 different roles that you'd find in a game studio. You know, don't get me wrong, there is everything that you'd expect from the actual game development, which is actually the making the game, but you've got all of the marketing department, you have all the HR, recruitment function, you have the kind of business development and product management, project management. You have all of this kind of stuff that goes on within a game studio. However, today, what I'm going to focus in on is the kind of core creative roles within game development. So this is the team that's actually making the game, not marketing the game or allowing or doing all the other stuff outside of it, but actually involved with actually making the game. So there's a few roles that I'll kind of go over at a high level. Most obvious is 3D art. So typically that could be character or environment or props. So this is, you know, making the models, you know, making the character, making the environment that it's all built into. Games design. So this is designing the game, how it's going to work. So it could be level designs, or designing a level. You know, you have to do this, then this happens, and you do this. System design, technical design, narrative design, designing how the game works, how you navigate through the various different levels and whatever there is of the game. You know, different mechanics of, you know, you do this and then this happens. So there's a whole field of games design. Animation is kind of self-explanatory, but animating the whole game. How does that character walk? You know, what happens when you press this button? Why does that? You know, how does that character jump, fight? You know, how does the wind blow the trees? Every single aspect you can think of. Same thing with VFX, visual effects, so explosions, magic spells, you know, that kind of thing. And kind of more 2D and concept art. So your 2D stuff might be more marketing assets, for example, and that kind of thing, or cutscenes. And your concept art is, you know, when they start to think of a new game, they build initial concepts of what the game's going to look like, and they set the creative. They set the creative down a path for building the 3D models off the concept art. So there's a whole piece of that as well. There's a few roles there, and I want to give you a bit of a reality check as well when it comes to these types of roles. Firstly, it's really hard. It's really hard to get a job in the games industry. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. At entry level, you know, studios do get bombarded by applicants because, as we said, it's a dream for many people to go in and make games, which makes it really, really competitive when you're job searching. And it does bring me on to my second point as well, is that being a good artist is only half the challenge. You know, art is really subjective by nature, and having good artistic flair and ability is really only half of what you need to be able to get the job. There's thousands of great artists who graduate every year and they don't end up doing the job that they love. And it could be for a variety of reasons, but a large part of it, most of the time, is due to them not getting noticed, due to them not presenting their work in the right way, you know, not understanding how their work is going to be used. So don't rely on I'm a good artist, because yeah, you might be overlooked. It also might not happen straight away. So some people will get really lucky and they'll have jobs lined up ready for when they graduate, or they'll get a job within a couple of months after they graduate. However, those people are in the minority. The vast majority of people don't get a job straight out of uni. Not in the games industry, not in the industry that they want to get into. A lot of people take time. It can you might have to take another year or two working on your portfolio, working on personal projects, doing other stuff before you end up getting an opportunity. But don't be too disheartened if it's something that you're really keen to do. Don't be too disheartened and give up after a couple of months, because actually you'll find that it's more common than not that people take a bit of time to be able to get a job. On that note, one thing to be really mindful of is that your career is a journey. So you may have a goal in mind. So if you want to work in the games industry, you may have a goal in mind for, maybe you want to work at a particular studio, or you want to work on a particular game or a type of game. Once again, the numbers tell you that probably won't happen first time. You're probably not going to get your dream job straight out of uni. It doesn't work like that in the real world. So treat your career as a journey. Take a step-by-step approach. If that's where you want to get to in the end, don't turn your nose up and turn down roles which are not exactly that, because they could all just be steps towards getting you to what that end point is, whatever it may be for you. And finally, your lecturers maybe won't want to hear this sometimes, but your work outside of uni is probably more important than your actual uni coursework. It's important to do your coursework, get a good grade, go to your lectures, that kind of thing. But when it comes to getting a job, having that and just having that isn't good enough, as we said. So you need to do other stuff. You need to have other things outside of uni that make you stand out, that show that you're committed. If you just do your uni work, you're the same as everybody else who's just done their uni work. So having personal projects, a portfolio, stuff outside, that's what makes you stand out. We're going to kind of look at some of the basics of what studios look for in both 3D art and games design. So for 3D art, the first thing, which is real basic, is you need to understand game engines. So game engines are what games are built in. They are the technology platform that are built in. There's two main commercial ones called Unreal and Unity, but don't get too hung up on having to know one or other inside out, because especially a lot of the larger studios, they have their own engines in-house that nobody else works on, so you'd never get a chance to use them unless you work there. But you need to know your way around them. You need to know how to use them. You need to know how to make games. You need to be used to working in that space. Tools are obviously a really important part. So for 3D art, once again, don't get too hung up on what specific tools. You should probably be pretty good at some of the main commercial ones you'll find in the industry, like Maya, Rush, these kind of ones. They're the pretty common ones you'd find in roles in studios. Your artistic ability is obviously important, so your composition, your color, your lighting and shadow, movement mechanics, if it's coming to animation and that side of things. This is your kind of foundation of everything. If you're a good artist, this should be what you're really good at. And your personal skills, sometimes overlooked and sometimes just kind of mentioned, but it's important. Making a game is a big team effort. You
Hi guys, sorry, Andy's just dropped out. I think his internet's just died, so he'll come back very, very shortly. I can see him joining again. Very annoying. He was interrupted mid-flow, but he'll be with us very soon, and he'll pick up from where he left off. Yeah, again, please bear with us. He'll join us again very, very shortly. I think he must just be having some technical issues at the moment.
explain your ideas to.
Andy.
Hi.
We lost you for a minute there. You cut out.
Oh, sorry.
Could you go back a slide?
Say that again.
And would you be able to go back one slide, because we lost you at the very start of it?
Yeah, sure. Hold on. Let me.
Okay. Sorry about this.
That's all right. You thought we'd be good at this by now, wouldn't you? We've had a year and a half of it.
It's always the way, isn't it? Yeah, this one.
Where did we get
up to? You were just explaining the tools, and then we lost you.
Okay. So tools. So as I mentioned, tools are really important. Don't get too hung up on exactly what one, but you should have a pretty good range of some of the main commercial ones that you'll see here. Your artistic ability, is important. This is your foundation as an artist. Your understanding, your knowledge of composition, of color, of lighting and shadow, movement mechanics, etc. When it comes to animation, these are your foundations of being a good artist, and it should be what you build on. And your personal skills. Making a game is a big team effort. You need to understand that your work isn't in isolation. It very much depends on other people to make it actually happen and make it into the game. When studios hire, they are very big on personal skills, communication, being a good team player, teamwork, adaptability, being professional. All of this kind of stuff is hugely important to the games industry. So when it comes to games design, so this is designing how the game works. There's a few things that studios look for. The first is knowledge of programming languages. Now, don't get me wrong, you don't need to be a coder. That's a completely different, separate role. So you don't need to be someone who can code a game, but you need to know the basics because you need to understand what's possible, what the limitations are. You can't just design something ridiculous that then the coders are going to come back to you and go, well, we can't do that. That's not possible. So you need to have knowledge, very basic knowledge of programming languages, how they work. C++ is the most common language you'll find in the games industry, so knowing the basics and knowing your way around that is going to be important. Game engines, once again, hugely important. It is how games are made. You need to know your way around those. Once again, you need to understand the technical limitations of what you're making. Excellent communicator. So, as I mentioned before, it's a big team effort, but for games design, it's even more so because you are the bridge between lots of different teams. You have to work with the coding team. You have to work with the art team. You have to communicate your ideas and have the ability to be able to explain in both technical and non-technical audiences. This is what I want to happen. This is how it's going to look. This is how it's going to work. You need to be able to communicate that well. And your documentation skills. So documentation is a big part of games design. You need to be able to write really detailed design docs. Detailed pieces of, when you click this button, this happens, and this happens because of this, and whatever else. You need to be able to document everything. So having really detailed documentation skills is important. But overall, for any job in the games industry, whether it's art, design, coding, whatever, there is one thing which is more important than anything else, far and away, and it's your portfolio. So ultimately, it is the most important thing when it comes to your application. It's more important than your degree. It's more important than the grade you got on your degree, and it will be the first thing that somebody looks at when they are assessing your application. That being said, on a first initial screen, you might only get 30 seconds of someone's time to look at it. So someone's not going to be going through and sort of trawling through it for minutes or hours. They'll have a quick glance at it, and they need to see straight away that this is something that's good. This is something that hits what we want to hire for. So you need to catch people's attention straight away. What it also means is you have to get the basics right. So this is your responsibility to ensure that people can see your work. So I'm talking about real basic stuff like making sure the URL, the link works, making sure that that link is really visible and prominent on your CV or on the application form or whatever it is. Making sure there's no adverts and distractions, and don't password protect anything. If you send a job application in and you mess up the link or whatever, and it doesn't work, they're not going to chase you for it. They're just going to reject you. They haven't got time. They might have 500 applicants for that role, and they haven't got time to chase you up and say, "Oh yeah, the link you sent in your CV doesn't work." They'll just assume that it's broke, that you haven't got it up anymore. So it's your responsibility to make sure that people can see your work, because if they can't see your work, then chances of getting an interview are really slim. So when it comes to game art, so this is your 3D art. There's a few things to think about when it comes to hosting it. So there's no need to create a website from scratch. Go through all of that. There's a platform built which is for exactly this. It's called ArtStation, if you're not aware. It is where people showcase their art. It is where you should host your art. It is the most commonplace within the games industry, and it's where people will expect you to be. There's a huge familiarity with hiring managers. With regards to the content itself, it might sound really obvious, but you need to be showcasing game art. So this is art which is quite clearly made for a game. So I'm talking about bringing it into a game engine and showcasing it working in a game engine to show that you've made it for a game. Providing kind of context, as to why, if you've made this character, why does this character look like this? Why is it wearing that color outfit? Why has it got this? Show your context within the wider kind of sphere of the game that you're, imagining you're making it for. But also understand your limitations. So, you can't make something which is ridiculous with a ridiculous high poly count, because it's going to be, it may look amazing, but it will never work, because games have to render in real time. It's not like film where you just do it once. Games are just continually, it's real time stuff. So you can't just have something which is ridiculously high quality, because quite frankly, your end user, your player, doesn't have the computing power to be able to see it. So you've got to understand your limitations to be able to show that you understand this in your portfolio. When it comes to games design, you probably should create a website. So there isn't an equivalent of ArtStation, but you should create a website. But feel free to use preset ones like WordPress or Wix or something like that. And the content itself needs to focus once again on game projects. So you should be showing off stuff that you've made for a game. So it could be a particular level, it could be a particular mechanic. This is where your basic understanding of coding is important, because you're going to have to make this yourself probably, unless you're part of a team for a game jam or something like that. But you need to be able to build working prototypes that you can show off to somebody. It also needs to be really visual. So we're talking embedded videos, animated GIFs, that kind of thing. It needs to be something visual that people can just glance at, and you can say, yeah, I made this. And that's exactly the kind of thing that people are going to see in 30 seconds to go, yeah, that's good, bring them through to the next stage. You want to include some of your documentation. So you don't need to put everything in. You want to be detailed, but you want to be concise as well. Give just a bit of a flavor for how you would do the full documentation if you were employed. And modding projects, they can also be good to include as well. So if you are involved in modding, if you modify games that are out there at the minute, like GTA, for example, is a prime example. Lots of people do modding on Grand Theft Auto, and they can be really good examples to include within your portfolio. So for any portfolio, it's important to remember that it's always quality over quantity. You don't have to have 100 different pieces in there. It doesn't mean you have a better portfolio. Actually, having a small handful of really high quality pieces is much more powerful. You also shouldn't be precious about your work. You don't have to include everything. portfolio needs to be a shop window of what you can do right now, not what you could do 2 years ago, 3 years ago, because you've probably got better since then. So be brutal. So if they're not relevant now, there is a full representation of exactly what you can do right now. Variety is an important thing to consider. Nobody wants to see a portfolio with just 10 things of exactly the same, so 10 different cars or 10 different, I don't know, 10 different people with the same kind of outfit in different colors. Nobody's interested. A variety. Show some realistic stuff and some really stylized stuff. Show some props. Show some characters. Show some environment. Show that you can do quite a bit of everything, because that will make you more employable. But always make sure you're showing original work. You want to show something different that's going to catch people's eye. Which is why if you just do your uni assignments, everyone else has done the same thing, and they'll have the same thing on their portfolio. And to be quite frank, lots of unis, lots of courses all have pretty similar types of coursework. So this is why you need to be doing stuff outside of uni. You need to be doing other stuff, original stuff that nobody else has done before, to make you stand out. And then this is one thing that lots of kind of graduates and students leave off, but it is really important. It's about having real clear descriptions. So every single piece that you're doing, you need to be really clear about how you made it. So what tools did you use to make it? What game engine is it in? How long did it take you to make it? What are the various different specs for it? These are all really important things to include. And finally, one of the key things to remember is don't compare to your classmates, because they haven't got a job either. So lots of people fall down this trap of, they'll build a portfolio and they'll look at people in their class, and they'll go, oh, mine's not as good as theirs. But don't compare yourself to them. Better thing to do is to do some research, find people who graduated last year or the year before and are now working as a junior artist and a game studio. You can do that on LinkedIn and then through ArtStation. It's very, very easy to do. You'll be able to find their portfolios online, and then you compare yourself to them and see how your work compares to them. Because obviously what they did worked. They ended up getting a job. So that is a much better way to be able to rank where you are at the minute, and if you're ready to start applying for jobs. Show reels. So anyone who's doing more animation or visual effects, you'll be putting together a show reel and a static portfolio. So there's a few things to consider. Firstly, Vimeo can be better than YouTube. There's just generally less ads, buffering works a little bit better, that kind of thing. But when it comes to content, once again, game specific is the most important thing. It needs to have, if you're doing animation, common in-game animations, walk cycles, run cycles, jumping, fighting, that kind of thing. You need to have a mix of realistic and stylized stuff. Don't just, once again, variety is important, and it needs to be displayed in engine. Once again, all about game engines. Your show reel doesn't need to follow a narrative, so you don't need to tell a story with it. It doesn't need to build up to the final bit in the show reel is the best piece that you've made, because quite frankly, someone might not get there and watch the whole thing. So start with your strongest piece. Whatever is the best bit of work you've done, put that first, so that if someone just watches 10 seconds of your show reel, they will see the best thing that you've made. And that is important, because some might not watch to the end. In terms of length, 60 to 90 seconds really is probably ideal. That's the kind of space that you want to work in. I've seen really good ones which are under that, but you wouldn't really want to go any longer than that, because, as I say, most people probably won't watch it. You only want to show work that's good enough, as we've kind of mentioned before, and you want to use captions. You want to don't just have the video playing, have captions showing the various different things that we talked about. What tools you used, what engine it's displayed in, that kind of thing. I'm going to show a couple of examples now of some really good portfolios and show reels, which give you a few ideas. So The first guy you're going to see is a guy called Jake Lamb. So Jake graduated last year in 2020, and he got a job straight away at Airship Images, which works on big AAA games. So you can see he uses ArtStation. It means his work is really clearly laid out. He also only has a small number of pieces, with his very best work being kind of the first stuff that's at the front that draws your eye. He quite clearly is going down the character art route. He makes characters with a really hyper kind of realistic style, but he's also got some other stuff on there which is more stylized, and some props and stuff to showcase some of his other stuff. He's got really clear descriptions of every piece. You know what he made, some of the technical specs, that kind of thing. Overall, a really high quality portfolio that caught someone's eye straight away, and he got a job. Next, you can see the portfolio of Tyron Tazar. So he also graduated last year, 2020. He now works at Deep Silver Dambuster. It's another AAA studio. Once again, only has a real small number of pieces on his portfolio. It doesn't have loads, but it's really high quality work. He's obviously going down more of an environment art route, so he's made all of the background, all of the environment and stuff. He has breakdowns of different props and different textures that he's made, and he's showcased them within an environment, so that people can see the context of, this is where it would work in a game. One thing you'll take from both his and Jake's portfolios is that the work is really high quality, but they've done that because they've looked at what artists in the industry are producing, and then they've taken that advice and they've made sure to benchmark themselves on people who have been there and done it. This is the kind of quality that studios will be expecting to see when they're hiring at a junior art level. Next, I want to show you a showreel. So this is Tom Hutchinson. So he also graduated last year in 2020. He now works at Codemasters, one of the biggest studios in the UK, and this is his VFX showreel. So once again, he starts with his best piece, which is this kind of magic spikes piece. You can see all the kind of smoke, the ice, the snow, that kind of thing. He's got really good captions at the bottom, what he used to make it, what engine it's been brought into. He follows it up with some other strong pieces that outlines his versatility, shows a few different technologies that he's able to use. Yeah, very good variety of stuff, so it's not all the same stuff. He also has a breakdown of the project, so showing some of the work he does in the back end, how he does things, shows his process a bit more. Overall, his showreel is about a minute long, just long enough for a hiring manager to be able to stay engaged and kind of see how his stuff is really relevant to a game's VFX role. And finally, I'm going to show you another showreel. So this is the animation showreel of Chris Woods, who also graduated last year again, and he's actually now in his second job in the games industry at Larian Studios. So there's a bit of sound with this as well. So he opens up once again with his best piece, and he shows some really common in-game movements. So this quite clearly looks like something for a video game, right? The way that character moves, he designed it with a game in mind. He shows his versatility. He shows some of the back end in terms of what he can do, and breaks down some walk and run cycles, some climbing. He has biped and he has quadruped animation, so this is 2- and 4-legged animation, which you'll see in a second. Once again, there he is showing his versatility, showing some variety. Once again, his show overall is about a minute long.
The solution's obvious. Get a job. Yeah, fine, whatever, but it's difficult, There just aren't that many media positions out there. That's the reality.
So once again, his work, it's really relevant for the games industry, shows some good variety, and overall is just really good, high quality. So to kind of getting close to finishing up, so when it comes to paths in the industry, there's a few things to consider. Firstly, there's lots and lots of different types of artists found within a game studio. You know, some of the larger studios, you know, your big studios, people, they will have people specialize in different niches. So they'll have people who are just working on cars, or just working on you know, props like tables and stuff. They will have people really pigeonholed into specialist areas. However, what you'll find is that for lots and lots of studios and lots of junior roles, they're probably going to end up being more generalist. So what I mean by this is that you'll probably do lots and lots of different things to begin with, which is fine. And then then further down the line, you'll end up specializing. So, you know, when we talk about variety on your portfolio, it's good to be able to show that you can do a range of different stuff and not just be pigeonholed into, I'm really good at doing this. The graduate roles, yeah, will expose you to many different types of role, and naturally you will end up going down a specialism. Always remember, as we said before, it's a journey. Take it step by step. Don't think that, you know, if you really want to specialize in doing something, don't think that you need to do that as a main job straight away, straight out of uni. That's where you want to get to. You may have to do some other stuff beforehand, but it's all good experience. It's all a step-by-step progression to get to what you want to do. I feel it's also important to be able to, for you to understand the reality of the recruitment market when it comes down to artists in the games industry, and how it all boils down to supply and demand. So for many studios, the different types of artists that are out there will present different challenges when it comes to recruitment. You know, in general, art is a really competitive area for entry-level roles, but some positions attract more candidates than others. So you'll see here roles like a concept artist, UI UX artist, 2D art, graphic design. These kinds of things attract more applicants than any others. It doesn't mean that there's no roles, or that this work is seen as less skilled. But what you'll find is that because probably it's less technical in terms of there's less software that you need to know, less tools that you need to know, there's more people who can do it. And so, you know, what you might find is that some studios, for some teams, they may just not need people to just do these roles. These type of art might be picked up by various different members of the art team just as a collaborative effort. So you may struggle to see roles which are specifically for this type of art at scale. Some of the things you can do, if that's something you do want to go down, if that's where what you do want to be doing, it's to try and add extra skills to your skill set. So try and work on more 3D stuff. Try and do some more technical work to complement the stuff that you can do here. What it means is that, once again, step-by-step approach. By diversifying your skill set, you may get into the industry, and then further down the line, you might be able to end up specializing in something like this. At the other end of the scale are the more techie roles, so technical art, VFX, stuff that uses more tools, more software. That is generally going to be more difficult to find. So, finding quality candidates is difficult. So there may be still loads of people apply for them. Actually, the quality is nowhere near as good. So they have a smaller pool to choose from. Many of the applicants just for these types of roles don't have the technical skills, don't have the programming, coding skills that are required for it. So for something like tech art, you need to be able to use Python and stuff as well as an artist. So, if you are sitting here and you feel like you've got that skill set, if you feel like, that's something you can do, I would certainly explore these types of roles. If you have projects, then this is what you want to highlight, because these are the roles that employers are struggling to hire for at an entry level. So to finish off, a quick summary. Keep working. Keep updating the portfolio. Regular updates. Work on personal projects. Do other stuff outside. Just keep doing the job before you get the job. Remember, it's a journey. It's unlikely you're going to get your dream job straight away. So keep working on a step-by-step basis to be able to get there. Don't get disheartened if it doesn't happen straight away, because quite frankly, it probably won't. So be prepared for that. And keep networking. Keep getting your work seen. It's no good making art if nobody sees it. So make sure that you are getting your work out there, getting seen, networking on social media. This opens doors for you further down the line. And that is everything. Obviously, if you want to keep in touch with us, you can see the website there, gradsandgames.com. You can see us on Twitter and LinkedIn mostly as well. That is.
Okay, well, we've got a couple of questions for you.
There we go, I'm back.
Yeah, we've got you. So we've got a couple of questions for you in the chat, Andy. So
sure.
This one is from Samantha, and she wants to know, how do you recommend they learn software for gaming and animation? Because a lot of them do illustration courses and things like that, so they have the design side but not the actual technical software side. So how would you suggest they learn? Is it like through YouTube or short courses?
Yeah, where we're at now in 2021, you're in a better position than anyone who studied before you, because there are tons of short courses, YouTube series, webinars. There is just tons of stuff out there that you can go and learn from, loads of tutorials and stuff. So it's just a case of going out and finding what works for you. If it's not part of what you're learning as part of your course, then the information is out there for you to go and find. I'm not going to give you a specific YouTube channel to look at, because there's tons of them out there. What you can also get as well, so the actual tools, the actual software that you need to use, the industry stuff that we kind of talked about, a lot of them have free licenses for students. So if you're a current student, you don't have to pay for it. You can generally get a free license on most of them, I think. So the barriers for going and learning are really low. There's not that many. It's really just down to you and your time and your desire to want to go do it. But yeah, certainly go out there, check, and really you'll probably just learn by doing. Get the software downloaded, watch a couple of tutorials, and just have a go with things. Really, is the best way I can say to do it.
As an add-on to that, Samantha, there's also LinkedIn Learning, which has loads of tools and software that you can learn, and guides on how to do it. So it might be worth checking out LinkedIn Learning from the Grad Future side. Next question you have from Gillian, saying, do you know anything about games costume design roles? So costume design for characters and things like that in games.
As far as I'm aware, I don't think that's a specific role. Costume design, that would just fall under character design. I don't think that there's, as far as I'm aware, you might be able to prove me wrong, I don't know, but I don't think there's a specific role for just costume design. It would just be under character design, but part of designing and building the character is the clothes or whatever they're wearing. So yeah, I would just look at just more general character art stuff, because that will include stuff as part of it.
Cool, yeah, that makes sense. And you have another question from Emmy, saying that currently they are using Blender to make 3D models and animations, but do you think Maya is more professional and more often used in the industry? Oh, we've lost Andy. He'll be back again very shortly.
I can't hear you.
Ah, so we lost you. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Yes. Was that me or was that you?
Well, it said to us that you were reconnecting, so I think you might have dropped out for a moment. So the next question is from Emmy, and they've said currently they use Blender to make 3D models and animations, but they want to know whether you think Maya is more professional and more often used in the industry.
Yeah, so Blender's really good because it's free, and it's a kind of, when you actually get into the industry, you'll find that it's not really used within game studios. They will use Maya, they'll use 3ds Max, they're your two main ones. So while it will give you a good base, a good foundation of, of how to build a 3D model, I would certainly invest some time in then taking that learning and picking up Maya and developing stuff in Maya.
Excellent. So that is all the questions that we've got in the chat so far. Guys, I'm going to enable your mics in case anybody else does want to ask any questions. I think that's everything. So I'd just like to thank you, Andy. Very helpful and really insightful. And I'm sure the students got a lot out of it. So thank you for your time.
No worries. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.